Hope Tower seems to be coming to a head.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
You know, it's always really interesting who comes to the show to argue key matters of dispute. Generally, people who are unhappy with something are first to come to any broadcast, any platform, the television show, the radio show. Those who are with new ideas are second, they come. But what's interesting about the Fane Tower, artificially named, informally named for the builder, or the Hope Tower, I'm not exactly sure where that came from. The big tower that they're talking about, and which is in dispute with city government right now, the advocates are less inclined to want to come here. But they're a great idea. And even behind, I've talked to all of them, and behind the scenes, they're very hedgy, cagey. They want to fill my head up and others in the media with arguments for, but they're not, not aggressive about coming out. It's just kind of a weird, funky situation. But those who are saying no are very clear about why they say no. So tonight, on the eve of what I believe is going to be a vote tomorrow night by the Providence City Council on a potential override of the mayor's veto of this project for a zoning change, easy for you to say, the Preservation Society's executive director will be here to say why he does not want this and why a lot of people don't. Did you follow all that? Good. I'm a little wordy first day of the week. But let's talk about a couple things that are happening in the world. Did you see any part of this interview with the former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson?
To go to work for a man who is pretty undisciplined, doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather just kind of says, look, this is what I believe, and you can try to convince me otherwise, but most of the time you're not going to do that. So it was really, for me, a challenge of, okay, I see your objectives, and I'll be very frank with you, I could sign on to just about all of his objectives. They're good for America. Our differences were always on tactics. How do you want to achieve that? And I had a view of what had worked for me for 25 years of dealing with world leaders, and he had a view of his own.
Okay. All right. It's a little bit of a, retro whack at his former boss. I don't think it's a mystery that Donald Trump doesn't like to read, doesn't do a lot of briefings. I think that's been pretty well sourced throughout the White House press corps, and nobody really pushes back that hard on it, except when Donald Trump gets his out of joint. Look at the tweet that came in response. He refers to Mike Pompeo, who is now the current Secretary of State. He's doing a great job. I'm very proud of him. His predecessor, who you saw in the video, didn't have the mental capacity needed. He was dumb as a rock, and I couldn't get rid of him fast enough. He was lazy as hell. Now it's a whole new ball game at State. Of course, that runs headlines like this because everybody picks up. Tweets are now official information or statements from the president. It just goes to show you, you leave the flock and say one wrong thing all of a sudden. And I don't know, talking to people over the weekend, there's a wincing that goes on. Many people voted for Donald Trump because they didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton, are in that category of like, oh gosh. The base, which is just so, they look at him as almost like a teen idol in some ways. It doesn't matter what he says. But I would think that there's got to be some base erosion when that kind of lash out at the former Secretary of State, who ran Exxon Corporation for all those years and who is pretty well known in the international community, is called dumb as a rock. Now, I thought the phrase was dumb as a post. That's the one I used. I'm not sure why either one of them have ever been used, but my big question is, what does it do for the next chief of? What does it do for the next secretary of? What does it do for the next military leader to know that you walk out, you say boo, you're going to get a whole lot more than boo back. I don't know how you build staff, and I don't know how you demand loyalty from something like that. But then again, what do I know? On the investigations, the Russian cloud darkens, and there are now some 14 people who have been identified as having spoken with some members of the Trump campaign about business or something to do with Russia. Whether there's collusion, how many times have we heard, no collusion, no collusion? If there's collusion, Robert Mueller is tying those pieces together. Who knows how long that's going to be? The thing that came out Friday that is actually more direct toward a conversation about impeachment is the idea that the president was pretty plainly identified as, for the second time, with the Michael Cohen pleadings and paperwork, and charged to the judge about what the prosecution wanted for his jail time. It was pretty clear that they're absolutely certain that he violated campaign finance law by making payments secretly and denying those payments to two women who he reportedly had affairs with and didn't want the country to know during election season. The big question is going to be, is that impeachable? Is that impeachable? Is that the kind of offense that you want to throw the president out for? Or is that the kind of offense that if the president is not reelected, he just gets indicted for? And just indicted is not me being nonchalant. I can't figure out any other way to say it. I think the debate in this country will be very interesting as to whether that's enough. Because of the salacious nature of it, it feels Clinton-esque, and it may not be. And I think we got to be really careful about throwing around impeachment for even that kind of what feels like, although it's a felony, feels like a misdemeanor. So we'll talk more about that as we get closer. I don't think Bob Mueller is near finished. The timeline I don't know about, but the content, whew. And finally, I do this just to pain my director. I guess we're restricted on the amount of video that we can use, which is probably a good thing for Kevin. Put the headline up there. Please put it up. Do I have to tackle you to put it up? Worst beat ever, Kev?
I wouldn't say worst, but it's up there.
No, he said, I don't say worst, but it's up there. Passage fumble type of, yeah. I hate to break it to you, it feels right in that category. I mean, that's the kind of play that never works. It's the kind of play that everyone on both sidelines is kind of giggling over actually trying to make happen. It's the kind of loss that would devastate teams like mine, the Giants. I'm guessing there's enough character on the Patriots to recover from this.
We're on to Pittsburgh.
As my director said, quoting his hero, Bill Belichick, we're on to Pittsburgh. All right, headline and the conversation that we're going to have here this evening. There it is. There it is, the famous Fane Tower, Hope Tower. Just doesn't have to call it the Johnson Tower. You'd have to be an old person to understand that joke. Brent Runyon is here. He's the executive director of the Providence Preservation Society. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Dan.
By the way, did you see that play? Are you a Pats fan by any stretch?
I'm not really a football fan.
No, you're not.
No, I'm from the South, so the SEC is really what we study down there. NFL, not so much.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're from Georgia originally.
That's right.
And you've been here in town for 5 years?
That's right.
Which is like having a hotel room with the culture in Rhode Island. You know, I've been here almost 20, and it's like I'm on vacation here. You don't want to see this tower happen, right?
We don't want to see it happen where they're proposing to put it.
Okay, we'll talk about that as we go. Before we do that, tell everybody what the Providence Preservation Society is and does, and why you feel like you have a stake in this argument.
Sure. Well, you know, for the first 30 years, we were basically about the East Side, College Hill neighborhoods, making sure that they were strong, because they were pretty weak in the 50s, and we helped you know, bring them back to a place people would want to live, and we've been protective of those areas ever since. You know, in the 80s and 90s, we started looking at downtown, and there was a big movement by civic leaders to bring downtown back to life in the 90s. So we've been involved in you know, opposing demolition, supporting good new design for new construction, and we're very much in favor of good new design. We're not stuck in the past. And we're all taxpayer, so we really encourage you know, new construction that pays taxes. So we do get involved in a lot of design review, but really now we're citywide. We're trying to support good zoning, planning, preservation, and construction throughout the city, because it's a city that has amazing neighborhoods, great architecture, but if we're not careful, if we start building things that don't support that kind of civic vitality, then we could wind up being a city of strip malls.
The Preservation Society is a what? A 501c3?
Yes, 501c3.
So it's its own funded organization.
Funded, I would say 75% through private individuals and businesses.
Okay. Any public money?
We get a $1,000 legislative grant every year.
From the oh, really? So you're part of the Dastardly Legislative Grant Program.
That's right. We
that $1,000.
$1,000 every year.
Congratulations.
We can almost count on it.
Oh, jeez. Is that the extent of which the public money that you get?
We apply for Tourism Council money, so that's another $10,000, but that's about it. Yeah.
Short answer: why do you think you have a stakeholder position? And well, what is your formal interaction with city government based on all these things that you review and help with and the like? Are you just kind of like a friendly agency most of the time, or do you have a formal role in the decisions that are made?
We have no formal role. We are not regulatory. We are advocates. So we show up at public meetings. We support or oppose projects depending on how we think they'll fit. We review zoning when they go through that kind of process. We're involved in those kinds of meetings. We bring a lot of planning, architectural expertise to the table, both at our staff level and our board. So we try to interject that kind of expertise into the city process, because you have to have people at the table.
And clearly you've had impact. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what the role is here. We'll start the arguments on the tower when we come back. Stay with us.
For something that's going to reshape our skyline and our streetscape, you know, I got to make sure that it works for the city of Providence, and I wasn't given those assurances. So, as I told them I would do, I vetoed the measure. All
right. So that is Mayor Lorza in the last week or two here that has caused some interesting political drama. Really, there is a zoning ordinance change that was up for the city council that they approved by a vote of 9-7, I believe, right? And that vote went to the mayor, and he vetoed that vote. The vote was about extending the height requirement. The zoning has a height capacity of
100 feet.
100 feet, and the tower is?
They're applying to be 600 feet.
600 feet. So it's not a mild adjustment by any stretch. And,
right.
Kev, you can pop those pictures up anytime you want to remind people what we're looking at. I see this as, you know, I said last week that I was mildly or I was aggressively ambivalent about this story, and of course that's oxymoronic in a sense, right?
Yeah.
My point is that I see both sides of the argument, and I've heard a lot of the pro side on the radio side. Tell me why this tower is a problem with its design.
The design. So just for the design.
Well, tell me what the argument against the tower is.
There are two main arguments that we're putting forth right now.
Okay.
And it's not how it's going to look on the skyline. That's a later discussion. So while I appreciate the mayor's veto, we don't think that's the major argument right now.
That's the one that unnerves me the most. So,
because design is subjective, right? So what we're looking at as far as design is on the ground level. How does it interplay with the park that we're investing a lot of money into? How does it interplay with the streetscape? And the developer has been unwilling to develop the design to show us that it's going to help with the park and make it a place people want to be. So right now on the park, what you'll see are the loading zones, the trash pickup, and the entrance to the garage. So that's a major problem with the design. Now it's a tough parcel, but you've got to work it out. I mean, you saw the hotel on the Triangle parcel downtown?
Yes.
They worked it out. It's fitting, you know, it's doing something for all three sides. So that's the major issue with design. He's not been willing to compromise or to show us that he cares enough about the park to change the design up. So we're very concerned about whatever goes in that parcel. And
again, the park's symbiotic relationship with the building would be affected negatively because of what's at the bottom of
Right.
the tower?
So imagine, the new $22 million pedestrian bridge
Yes.
that Providence has been building for years.
Yes.
So picture yourself going from the east side over the bridge to the west side park.
Over the canal.
Over the canal. When you get there, you'll see a park, and then behind that, with the current design, the entrance to the parking garage, the loading for the trash, all the loading stuff there. The retail and other stuff will be around on the other sides. So for us, it's a major problem that we're investing so much in public space.
Do you think he could flip the building so that the ugly stuff is on the other side of the walkway into the beautiful park?
If he had shown through the many design iterations that have been going over the last 2 years, if he had shown some willingness to adjust that, we would drop that. That would not be a point of opposition. So certainly. But currently, we are where we are.
Do you have any expertise in architecture to know that whether that's flippable like that or not?
That is not my area of specialization, but I think with the evidence of the Triangle parcel, that hotel, they made some tremendous changes to be able to address the two sides of Memorial Boulevard and as well as two major corners. And it seems to have worked out. They have parking, they have entry, they have some, everything works. So I would think that with a good designer that cared about this Providence's public space, they could figure that out.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Second point.
The second point is the change in zoning. People say we change the zoning all the time, and that is true. There are many reasons to change zoning, typically not to increase the height by 600 feet for one developer. If we think that that area should have skyscrapers in it, they should change the zoning for the area, because that should be part of a plan that we see the future of our city getting taller in that location. But ever since the old harbor plan came out in the 80s, I believe, the zoning, the agreements for the 195 land, the comprehensive plan, all of those things have been built towards the same thing: lower rise near the river, higher rise away from the river, and towards downtown, the financial district. So this is not a new idea. We've embraced these ideas for years in planning and zoning, and all of a sudden, because somebody's waving a shiny penny, we're willing to jettison that, and that's a major point of opposition.
So when we come back, we'll talk about what at least an argument was made last week to me on the air for this project and the big building, small building concept. Stay with us. So again, we're talking about the Fane Tower, known as the Hope Tower, and the vote is most likely coming down tomorrow night. And there's at least one city councilor, Mary Kay Harris, from Ward 11, who voted against this project, who now is reportedly revisiting her decision. And she would be the 10th vote, and it would create a veto to change the ordinance prohibition of 100 feet to 600 feet. Is that the last thumbs up that the developer needs to put this baby up?
Not quite. That was one of the that was the first thing that the 195 Commission asked him to get before moving on to the next part of their process. So he has to get the zoning, and then they will then have some other things that he needs to comply with. I'm not sure exactly what those are, but I know there are some development timelines. I think there's some financing evidence he has to provide.
Okay. So, Kev, there were some really nice pictures there in the last segment of the building and the architecture around it, and then the cityscape. And just throw those up as we have a conversation about this, if you can, because it might be B-roll, as we say in the business. Mike Sabatoni, who heads up the laborers union, was talking to me about this last week, and he was saying, "Hey, listen, our study of cities and their development is that you take a tower like that, all by itself, the cityscape will fill in. In other words, tall buildings will fill in. Because I raised it feels like kind of like a toothpick at the end of your chin type of thing. It just feels weird to me.
Right.
So that space that we're looking at, folks, there between the tower and the city, you see the city in the background. and those are the other tall buildings. So there you go. That from that side, so that's south, that's north to south, looking through the downtown. But that seems like a big space, and it does feel weird to some. I'm the last guy that's going to be the not in my backyard dude. You're talking about changing the mission of height if you want a building like this.
Absolutely.
That makes sense to me. See, this is every time I go back and forth with these arguments, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe there needs to be an overall consensus that that kind of height is going to be part of the cityscape, and you'd feel less problematic about it. Is it about process, or what is it?
That point is about process, because we've all agreed through a series of meetings developing the comp plan and zoning that, and they increased the height from 45 feet to 100 feet in 2014. So it's not as though height wasn't considered, and it was greatly increased. So that was a whole comprehensive process with the city. It didn't take into account one developer's idea. So from a process point of view, what the city council is doing is really bad precedent, and it'll come back to bite us, because the next person will want something over there, the next over there. And so where does it end?
Well, maybe it ends with people who, or begins with people who say, I got $300 million of my own money. The argument is, hey, back off, do-gooder, you know. We got $300 million, this guy going and putting in. The net taxpayer benefits based on the business model of this thing are in the hundreds of millions of dollars over time. Relax.
Right. So
you can't be saying no to developments.
So no one's saying no to the development. We're saying the process is flawed. We want development, but why won't you consider putting it somewhere else? But he's completely unwilling to talk about that. That's why the mayor vetoed it.
Real quick, on the Superman building, which is in that scape, which is dark at night, do you guys have a thought on it?
We've been working on that for over 5 years. We work closely with the developer, his development team, Commerce, to try to come up with some solution, some ideas on how to move it forward. And I think it's going to take state leadership, actually, to make it work.
It's going to take a public-private partnership.
Absolutely.
Right? It's going to. There's going to have to be some public money in that solution.
Absolutely.
One way or the other.
Right.
Right? Because if the owner just abandons the whole situation, the state will, or the city will still have to take it down.
Right. I mean, and so the gap in financing for this project, the developer hasn't shown us a pot of money that he's willing to put in as equity. The amount of money we're putting there is probably best put somewhere else. I mean, we have this hulking empty building downtown. If we're talking about investment in our city and state, let's get that building filled up. It's right in the heart of downtown.
Alrighty, that's the argument. We'll see what happens. I think the microwave just went off. What happens around here? Good arguments. I appreciate it. We'll see what the city council does tomorrow night. Somehow, one way or the other, you're telling me you don't think the story's over one way or the other.
Definitely not over.
All right. Thanks for your perspective. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. This whole Fane Tower thing is a classic. Somebody for it makes a really great argument. Somebody against it makes a really great argument. Then somebody for, and then somebody against. Leadership's about making a call. Alorza didn't like the design. Maybe it did have something to do with the bottom, walking over the bridge and seeing some dumpy section of the building. That's what these people are all about. They look at this stuff. It seems to be that's remediable. The point he made about making a mission statement about height in the skyline seems to be the best argument that they've made, right? Because one-off agreements generally are never healthy for the long term of any organization, including a city like Providence. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Thanks for watching.